Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on physical inventories made painless with Bravo. We're so excited to have you here. My name is Kat, and I'll be guiding you through today's session. So today we're going to walk through Bravo's physical inventory feature by breaking it down into a few areas. First, we'll start with prepping your audit. Next, we'll show you how to set up a physical inventory session. After that, we'll move on to using the physical inventory application for scanning. Then we'll talk about reconciling discrepancies, and finally, we'll wrap up with closing the inventory and reporting. Now, throughout the session, feel free to send in your questions using the chat feature, and we'll answer as many as we can during the session and during our QA at the end. So let's talk about how you can make physical inventory a regular part of operations and not just a once a year event, but a tool for better controls and efficiency. So we have weekly category audits are a really great way to get hands-on with your high value items. So instead of waiting for a big inventory audit, you can rotate through different categories each week. One week you could check laptops, the next maybe rings, and this pretty much will keep you familiar with what's in stock and makes it easier for you to spot missing or misplaced items before it becomes an issue. The next thing that you can do is random counts. Now, these are a great way for managers or owners to step in and inspect a random set of inventory. It's a quick way to get a pulse check on how things are going. And more importantly, when employees see that inventory is being checked at unexpected times, it creates a sense of accountability and can deter any mismanagement. Next, we have a fixed date, or what I like to think of as like quarterly full audits. And this reviews a set date range to ensure inventory accuracy. And since you're only checking items that hit inventory within that quarter, it's much smaller than a full inventory. And it also helps prevent end of year rush and helps you stay on top of any discrepancies before they snowball. Lastly, we have the yearly full inventory and loan audits, and in some areas, they're necessary for your end of year reporting and compliance. But if you've been checking throughout the year, this process becomes much more smoother and far less stressful. So, bottom line, the more often you check, the easier it gets, and regular use of Bravo's physical inventory tools keeps things accurate, improves accountability, and speeds up the entire auditing process. So before we dive into an inventory audit, let's get a little preparation because it does go a long way. So taking the time to set up properly can be the difference between a smooth, efficient process and a frustrating, time-consuming one. So first, let's make sure we have the right equipment. We'll want to make sure that we have laptops or Surface Pros that run Windows, something lightweight and easy to move around since you'll be scanning inventory all over your store. You'll also need to download the Bravo PI application ahead of time. Now, if you're using computers that already have Bravo installed, you don't have to worry about a license key. But if you're putting this on something that doesn't have Bravo yet, just reach out to our support team so you can get a few extra license keys specifically for the audit. Next, having a cordless scanner is a game changer. This way, you don't have to hand key items in, although if you don't have a scanner, that's still an option for you. But with it being cordless, you're not fumbling, you're not getting stuck in between cords. Lastly, making sure you have enough people scheduled to help. Full inventory audits takes time because you're checking everything in your store. So having a dedicated team for scanning and reconciling will keep things moving efficiently and prevent bottlenecks. So some pro tips just to help make your inventory run as smooth and hassle-free as possible. First up, Make it mobile. If you have rolling carts in your store, placing the laptop on one of these so you can move around easily while scanning really is a game changer. It keeps your hand free. It allows you to move inventory around on the shelf, ensuring that you're not missing any scans. The other thing this does is since you're not like teetering it underneath your arm or like having it hanging off a shelf, it really does create a more secure way to do your scanning. It's safer and ultimately just an easier setup. Next, if possible, try and schedule scanning outside of business hours. Because when the store is open, you've got customers asking questions, transactions happening, inventory is moving around, and it's really easy to miss something when there's so much going on. And on top of it, if you get disrupted, it's really hard to kind of come back and figure out where you kind of left off. So that can create like inconsistencies with your scans or create duplicates. Next, divide and conquer. So have clear sections assigned to each person who's helping with this audit can really help prevent overlap, meaning that Jack and Jill won't scan the same items, creating duplicates or overages in your audit. So having those defined boundaries really helps keep the process organized. And lastly, it's not on here, but a really great pro tip is start with a small category just to get the feel of the entire process. This can be something like a location or a category, just so you can kind of see how to a session up, how to scan using that PI app, and ultimately how to handle the reconciliation process. All right. Now let's get into the fun part of popping into Bravo and setting up a new session completely. So I'm going to close out of here. And in our Bravo dashboard, we are going to navigate to the right side menu, expand open our inventory section, and head to physical inventory. So in here, this is going to show you all of your current open inventories if you have them in. So to create a new session, we are going to head to the right side menu where we can see a handful of other options. So adding a new session, we're just going to click on Add New Session. There are two options that you can choose from here, and that is going to be creating a new one or copying from an existing audit that you have previously done. So let's start with creating a new audit first. So let's go ahead and open this up here. So when you start a new audit session, it automatically has the status pulled in here. And that's because you have to identify what area you're looking for in your audit. So let's go ahead and just select inventory. So this is saying we're looking for anything that has this matching status. Now, just like with our ad hoc reporting, the way we can add more to our session is by heading to Add New Criteria. And maybe we want to do a category audit. So let's go ahead and add category to our session. And from here, we can start using these different categories to really refine what our session looks like. So at this point, I want to go ahead and do a category audit on laptops. So there are two ways that you can handle this. You can either click through, or if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can start typing it in that category search and select what you want to add to your category. Now, in here, this means that we're only looking for laptops that are in our active inventory. It will not include other things that roll up into your inventory, like unpriced, damaged, and much more statuses. So one of the things that Bravo has done is created pre-made templates on the right side menu here. So if we're looking to do a full inventory we can click that and it automatically enters in every single status that makes up your inventory balance. So at this point, it would include things that are not only in your active inventory, but things that are waiting to be priced, things that are on hold, fully giving you a holistic view at what's in that category. Now, if you really are only interested in just your active inventory, at that point, you can just have that one status equal inventory. Bravo also has this set up for your loan base as well. So clicking full loan base allows you to look at everything that is in your active loan status. Now, the only thing that, or the only thing to really note is that in both your inventory or loan audit, anything that is added to your open scrap buckets are not included in your physical inventory, since in Bravo's minds, it's on its way out to the refinery. So if that's something that you're interested in kind of double checking on, you would have to go in and audit those open buckets separately. Now, one of the things we talked about is random counts as part of a strategy to keep your store really moving well. And we also have that built on the right side menu for you as well. So if we go ahead and click full inventory and a random count, it is basically going to say, hey, we're looking for stuff in inventory for this specific category, and you can add how many items you want to look for in your store. So if you're a really big store, maybe 10 items isn't enough, and we want to look for 25 items. You can easily go through and create that random count, and it'll pull 25 laptops that are in your inventory. Now, the only other thing to really do in order to create this session is to name it. So let's say category audit, or we'll just say laptop audit, June 2025. And when we click next, this is going to give us our items that we are now looking for. When you hit save, it's now going to be an open audit for us to go through, add it to our PI app and scan through to make sure everything is found. Now, I do want to head back because I also want to show you an existing audit. So we're going to head to add new session, copy from existing, and this is a really great feature when you already have your pre-built criteria that you like for your company. So in here, I'm going to use my drop-down box and I'm going to select my cat audit because I am going to look for everything that is in the location of cat. So let's go ahead and change my name here. And this is going to be cat June of 2025. So when I click next, it's going to show me everything that I'm looking for that's located in that location area in Bravo. Now, once I hit save, this is going to make the audit I create a static report. So as things expire and get added to this location, they're not going to be added to this audit. The other thing to note is that buckets and non-serialized stock SKUs, or pretty much anything with multiple quantity, the inventory application item would have to be scanned for each of those items in that quantity. So if you have 10 DVDs, you would scan that SKU each time a new item is found, and it would basically add in here all of the quantity. So if that seems like a lot, you can either leave SKUs off completely and count them and then update them through stock adjustment. Or if you want to basically head to your system configurations and print out your bucket SKUs, if you don't tag them, you head to system configuration, head up to your company, go to the buckets tab, And if you select print buckets, it's going to show you all of your bucket SKUs that you have created with the barcode. Now, if this is the technique that you're going to use, the only thing I would say is just only scan the SKU for the items that you're finding, because if the SKU doesn't have anything in there, so let's say I have no batteries in my store, if I scan that barcode, it's going to say, hey, here's an overage of an item, even though you don't have it. Okay. So now that we have our session created, let's see what we're going to do now. Now we are going to head into our physical inventory app, which is what that PI stands for. And we're going to see how we log in, how we find our session. So let's go ahead and close out of here and get our app open. Okay. So right now it's just downloading. And whenever you create a session inside Bravo, it's automatically going to connect it to your PI application. So as we open this up, it is going to give us all of the sessions that we have available for the stores. And here is the audit I just created. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to go ahead and click select. Now, the other positive thing is when we are logging into or signing into our audit, we're going to use the same credentials that we use inside Bravo. Okay. Now it's time for the fun part, and let's go ahead and start scanning stuff in. So up top, we do want to make sure that we have our cursor inside the scan box. I do have a scanner with me, so I'm going to go ahead and scan my very first item. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm going to turn the sound on so you can hear the difference between when something is found versus when something is not found. So, oh, I didn't put it back in there. Okay, so that very first one was found. And of course, the sound went off. So in here, as stuff is found, it's automatically going to fill down here. It's going to say when it was scanned, the inventory number, who, which location it's in, and the description of the item, as well as the snapshot. In this box here, it shows that it is syncing to Bravo, which means that it is collecting the data. If for some reason this is not syncing or there's no check mark in there, just reach out to our support team so that they can help you get it all synced up. All right, so let's go ahead and get the next one in here. And right there, that little sound indicates that it was found. Now, there's another sound that it could do, and it just indicates that we need to look for the item. So let me pull this in here. Let's try this. So that noise just indicates like, hey, something's not right. It's not the found sound. And when we look down, it's going to show us that this item doesn't have any information and it says a manual snapshot. So we're going to click on these three dots to see what's going on with it. And so when we click on it, it says, hey, this is something that you're not looking for. So for instance, if you scan something and in this particular case, it's not located in the location cat, it's not part of our audit. If you have in your location session set up that you're only looking for active inventory and this item is still considered unpriced, you'll get this message. So let's go ahead and cancel that out. Get our next one in here. All right, so we got another ding. So let's find out what the problem is here. So when we highlight our item, we see that manual snapshot we're going to click our three dots to see why we have an issue. And when we pull this up, it's going to say, hey, you've already scanned this item before. So at this point, if you really do have two of this item, you're going to scan it again to add it into your system. If this was an accidental duplicate scan, we're going to hit cancel and just click this red X so it won't create a duplicate item or an overage in your audit. So when it comes to multiple people doing the scan, if you have those overlapping areas, it's not going to indicate that something was scanned twice if two different people scan it on two different sessions. All right, so let's go ahead and finish our scan out. Um, the next thing to know is that when it comes to SKU or bulk items, if you are scanning them consecutively, it will increase that quantity. So as you see, I have a bucket SKU here. I've scanned two in a row and it's adding to that quantity. But if we pick up a different SKU, uh-oh, we have an issue. Oh, I scanned a duplicate item. So I'm not going to rescan it. And I'm going to click X here. And I'm going to pick up my next SKU. And if I go back to that original SKU of 1010, it's going to start an entirely new line for it. So it's not going to pick up that count where it came off. All right, so let's continue doing our little scan here. All right. So at this point, let's go ahead and create an overage just so that we have one inside our store. And we'll do two different types of overages. We are going to do one from something that was scanned, just like this one. So it was scanned on a different person's session. I'm going to rescan it in to create that overage because that does happen sometimes. And when we do that, it adds it into our session. So we can see here that we have two of them here. That's going to create an overage when we go to reconcile this. Now, the other thing that we could encounter is that maybe Bravo just doesn't recognize the number that we're entering in at all. So I put in this inventory number. It gave us that little ding, and we're going to hit the three dots here. The number's not recognized. Try again. So I'm going to put it back in, and it's going to say, hey, we really just don't know what this is. Enter a little description so that when you're reconciling it, you can take care of it then. So let's go ahead and enter our item here. And we'll also do another one so that when we head into reconciling, we can add one into inventory and make the determination if we want to add the second one in too. So here's our other item that's also not a found number. Scan it back in. And time to enter our description. All right. Perfect. Uh-oh. Oh, I did. There it is. Okay. All right. So now at this point, every so often, you might find things in your store that doesn't have a tag, right? And so you're like, hey, how do I know if it's part of this audit or not? Instead of like fretting about it, just head directly back into Bravo. So I'm going to pull up our Bravo session, and I ended up finding a jewelry piece that was weighed at 17 grams. So I'm just going to head to inventory, and I'm going to go to ad hoc reporting. And since it's jewelry, I am just going to say, okay, hey, I need something in inventory, and I'm going to go ahead and put the total jewelry weight, and I'm going to put exactly for what I weighed it at. And when I do this search, it's going to bring up results of potential matching items. Let's do a range 17 to 18. All right. So at this point, we can go through and we can start seeing if our piece matches that description. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to show my column chooser to add in the total jewelry weight. And at this point, we have two that it could be. And since it is a silver chain, this would be the one that I would reprint my tag for. And I can also see that it is not part of my location for cat. So I can retag it and make sure I move it to the correct place it's supposed to be in or relocate it inside Bravo. So that's some ways that you can kind of handle some hiccups that you experience during your audit. All right, so now that we have our scan pretty much done, we're gonna head back to our boss and we're gonna say, all right, we're completely done scanning. Let's see how we did. So returning back to Bravo, we're gonna go back into our physical inventory audit where we are going to go into our cat session. So in here, we are going to head to the right side menu and we're going to hit reconcile. But before we head in there, I did want to review a few terms here, and that is adjust snapshot. So if you're doing a full audit and it's going over a handful of days, if you click adjust the snapshot, it's going to bring in any type of activity that's happened throughout the days. So if something is sold, that could be why you didn't find it. So hitting that adjust snapshot would then update the status from inventory to sold, where it's not going to mark it as a shortage. So let's go ahead and click reconcile to get into our reconciliation process. I am done, so I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And now it's going to say we have a handful of items. On this very first page, this is going to be all of the items that we had part of our audit session, our physical inventory session. If we head to the next one down here, it's going to show everything that we've scanned in. And then we have a few other areas. We have our overages, we have our shortages, and then unreconciled is basically adding overages and shortages, just saying there's 7 things that need your attention. So let's talk about some overages first. So in our overages section, we have 3 different ones. We have an unknown and we have a duplicate. So duplicate is anytime something that it recognizes, but you scanned multiple times. That's what a duplicate is. And in here, the only real way to get this off your list moving forward is to find it in your audit session and exit out. So in here, we're looking for inventory number TST ending in 9114. So I'm going to look through my scans and I'm going to find that it was me who scanned it twice. And I'm just going to X this off my list. And basically, when I head out of here and refresh it, it'll remove from my reconciliation process. So we're going to go ahead and leave that one alone since we handled it in our PI app. Now, the other 2 that we have are ones that Bravo didn't recognize at all. And we have a decision to make. Do we want to add these back into our inventory or what do we want to do with them? So the very first one is a bracelet. It is pretty valuable. We searched through our current inventory. We didn't find anything. So I've made a determination that I want to add this back into my inventory. I am going to head to my right side menu. I'm going to click add jewelry. And here's where I'm going to start going through and running it through my estimator. So 2.35, 10 karat gold. It is a tri-colored bracelet, and we're going to type in bracelet. Hmm. Well, this one is a gold stone bracelet, so let's go ahead and just select that. I'm going to just use my freeform entry, or if you use the stone estimator, you can go ahead and enter in your stones and click next to basically bring it to our add item screen where we are going to locate it. And anytime we're adding inventory back in to our system, if it's done in a singular manner, there would have to be a cost attached to it. I don't have the cost offhand, so at this point, I'm just going to put it as a penny, but you guys can decide on how you want the cost to be for the items you're bringing back into your store. Since this item came from my store, I'm just going to create a vendor called Bravo since it didn't come from an outside source. All right, so now that I have that done, I'm just going to go ahead and say it came from CAT 62025 audit and accept that item back into inventory. So that removes from that overage because I've taken care of it by adding it back into my physical inventory. Now, this next one, I'm looking at it. It's a pretty old navigation system. Haven't really been selling them. So instead of adding something I know that will just sit on my shelf forever and just take up prime real estate, I decided I'm not adding it back into my store. So instead of adding it into inventory, I'm just going to explain it with a note. And that is pretty much just going to not add it into my store. So I'm just going to say TomTom not adding back in. And when I do, it removes it from my stuff to take care of. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our shortages so that we can tackle those next. So we have four different shortages that we have to tackle. Um, these two I'm looking at are definitely SKUs. So when I look at these, I want to kind of see what I'm supposed to have versus what I have scanned. So on here, it only shows my expected count. But if I go to any of these upper columns and right click to get my show column chooser, I can then go in and add what I'm supposed to have in Bravo with my expected count and also what I've scanned into the system. So this just lets me know, hey, we are one item short on this SKU and we're two items short on that SKU. And then we also have two scans that we haven't done. Typically, at this point, you can go through, you can give your folks a list of items that they have to find. So if we wanted to add more information here, we can add things like the item description, tag description, and we can start moving things out of here. So let's go ahead and clear this up a little bit so that they can see what these things are. So now we have our list. We can print it out so that we can hand it off so that they can go back and kind of do another sweep of the floor to make sure we've got everything done. Because if we go through and we start writing off is a permanent step. Once it's written off, you're not adding it back in unless you're adding it in as a brand new item. So I printed this off, I handed it off to our folks. So I'm just going to go ahead and get back to work while we do some more scans. So we have our PI app up and hopefully it's this one here. We actually found another item. So I'm going to scan it into my app and I go back to my boss and I say, I looked everywhere. I can't find any more. This is all I found. So we're going to go back into Bravo, head to our physical inventory audit, where we can then go and see our reconcile here. So when we click on it, we're done scanning. It's going to update what we've done in the system. So as you can see, that overage that we had is gone um, from what we deleted from that PI app. So now we just have to tackle those three items. The very first one up, there's two ways that we can get this out of our system. Well, I should say there's three ways. One, we can explain it with a note. When we explain it with a note, it's still going to keep this item in our active inventory. This is a really great way. A use case for it, I guess, would be, let's say it is being repaired and it's not in store and you didn't transfer it out. You could say, explain with note, out for repair. And then at that point, it's not removing it from your inventory. You just noted it wasn't physically in our store when we did our audit. The other two ways are permanent ways to get them removed from your system completely. So that's write off and confiscate item. So with write off, you would then assess a reason and hit OK, and it would basically count it as shrink or a loss. With confiscate item, this is typically used when an item has been confiscated from the police and it's not coming back to your store. Now, if the police basically came, picked it up, but haven't said they are fully confiscating it, the best course of action is placing the item on hold so that you can release the hold if the item comes back to your store. In this case, unfortunately, the item was swiped off our shelf when we went and looked at the footage of our cameras. So this is going to be labeled as external theft, and we're going to click OK. Now, the next two things we have on here are our SKU items. So just to get a better look for what I'm doing, we are going to just go ahead here. All right. So this very first SKU item, you can do the same exact thing. We're only missing one. So we can either go through and write it off, explain it with a note, or adjust our quantity. So for this particular item, we're just going to write one of them off. So here we have that item. We're going to keep it as a quantity of one. We really don't know the reason why. And now that's going to be removed from our shortage list because we have identified what the issue is and how we handled it. The very last one, we are going to reconciling it. We're going to reconcile it with an adjustment. So we're going to head to the right side menu and we're going to click increase or decrease the quantity on hand. So at this point, it's saying how many do we need to remove or add to make this match our physical count. So if we're adding to the SKU, we would have a positive number. And in this case, since we are removing from that SKU, we're going to say we're doing -2 quantity. Now, anytime we adjust the quantity, it will affect the average cost of an item because there's either less or more quantity. So if we're adding quantity and we're not adjusting the cost will go down in that bucket. If we're removing quantity and not adjusting the cost with it, the cost of that bucket is going to go up on average. So once we go ahead and click this, we are now completely reconciled. Everything has been handled. We have no action items with our little bubble counters. And now we can go ahead and click done. There's nothing left to reconcile on here, so we can close this session out. Okie doke. So at this point, we are completely done with our reconciliation process. So we did go in and we closed our audit. Now, when you close down the audit, it locks it down. So no further edits can be made and it officially marks it as finished in your records. So if we were to pop back into Bravo, and let's get out of here, and we go to that physical inventory section in inventory, physical inventory audit, it's not going to show on our active and open statuses because it's closed. You can always access your closed sessions. We're going to head to the right side menu and we're going to see show prior sessions. And when we do that, it's going to open up our page to all of our either canceled or closed audits that we have previously done. And there's a lot of them, so it's going to take a minute for it to pull up. All right, so at this point, I'm only interested in looking at the closed ones. And at the very bottom is going to be the one we just finalized. So in here, now we can go back into it if we wanted to view it from a past time, or we can kind of call it done. So when it comes to thinking about like reporting for your physical inventory, there's a handful of reports that you can look at. We'll start with the canned reporting inside Bravo. So when we head to the right side menu and navigate down to reports, the very first one I like to look at is our cost adjustments, and that's pretty much because it updates immediately. Unlike some of the other reports where we have to go in and we have to wait for the store to close and for it to be available the next day. When we click on this one, you can select your date range. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose for today only to see what we've assessed as shortages for our audit today. So in here, it tells you when the date the adjustment was made, the inventory number for it, the reason behind it, what kind of action was taken on that item, now its current status, and the cost changes that were made. So in here, you see that one SKU item that we actually wrote off. Since this affects cost, it is attached on this list. Since the other one was just an adjustment to the quantity, we didn't change the cost of the bucket total. It's not going to show on this list that that stuff was either removed or added to it. All right. Now, the next thing that we have on here is the inventory base report. So this one does have to be closed or viewed after closes of day. So next day it'll be available. In here, this is a great report to see your current inventory balance, what's on hand, how it's categorized, and a snapshot compared to before and after. And yeah, before and after you're tracking improvements over time. So the very first column is going to be what you started the day with. And then throughout these columns, it just shows how things have been added to the balance or removed from the balance. So anything in a positive number gets added to your inventory. Anything in a negative number will get taken away from your inventory. And the very last column is going to show your ending balance. So on the first, we ended with 4.4 million in inventory balance. And in the beginning of the day, we started with that exact same amount. So ending balance of one day is always going to be the starting balance of the next. Now, the very last report that I did want to show is part of our Bravo Reporting Pro. So if this is not part of your product lineup, just stand clear because this is the last thing we're showing until we get into our Q&A. All right, so in here we are going to look for our inventory reports and we are going to head to inventory physical audit. And this gives you a detailed view of the actual audit, what was expected. Let's go ahead and do all, start date, end date. And we're going to go ahead and enter in our criteria up top and click to view the report. We might have to go a little further out. Okay. All right. So in here, this shows that we've done several audits within this time frame. It shows you the actual audit set name, who created it, the status of that audit, and then also in here, expected quantity versus actual, any overages, any shortages. With this little plus button, let's go ahead and increase that. With this little plus button where you can go and expand it, to see the details of the actual audit. So, this is a really great report to view things for your entire company level in one spot without having to go back to each individual session report to see the details of it. Okay, so then at that point, this is pretty much all we've had planned for you today. I do want to open it up to see if we have any questions. What's on your mind? What kind of things are you wondering about? And if you need clarity on anything else. So while we are waiting for some chats to come through, I'm just going to go ahead and head to our next page. And thank you so much for joining us today. We do host webinars every Wednesday and Thursday. So if you found this helpful, come hang out with us again. We do host webinars, again, Wednesday and Thursday, packed with tips, walkthroughs, and I am here to answer any questions that you currently have to help you get the most out of Bravo. So if we have no questions, which it doesn't look like we have any coming in, I do hope to see you next time and have a great day, everyone.